Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into a massive, urgent, behind-the-scenes battle taking place right now over who actually controls the future of artificial intelligence. We're going to examine the huge wave of public anxiety this tech is generating and, well, break down why our traditional systems of oversight seem to be completely falling apart.
Picture this, because it perfectly illustrates the immediate disconnect we're facing. On one side, you've got lawmakers in the U.S. Capitol working under harsh fluorescent lights, trying to draft AI oversight bills for technology they honestly often don't fully comprehend. Contrast that with the gleaming tech towers out in San Francisco, where lightning-fast server farms are deploying autonomous agents capable of executing complex legal documents. There's no congressional approval, no public comment period, and certainly no public vote. It's a stark, almost jarring contrast between really slow-moving legislation and explosive corporate momentum.
Now, you might be wondering how the public feels about all this, because the utility of these new AI interfaces is so immediate, so undeniably compelling, we just keep using them, even when the underlying threats feel kinda abstract. But despite that utility, an alarming 71% of Americans express a definitive truth. They firmly believe increased AI use will make their personal information less secure. The air is absolutely thick with anxiety. We know our data is the commodity here, yet the market demands our participation. We hover our fingers over that accept terms of service button and, we click it anyway.
Which brings us to our first major roadblock, the AI trust deficit.
Look at this 2026 Pew Research data. It highlights what is essentially a massive double bind. A whopping 67% of Americans have little to no confidence in the U.S. government to regulate AI effectively. And by the way, that is up from 62% in 2024. But on the flip side, an equally staggering 59% are not confident in U.S. companies to develop and use AI responsibly either. So, the public trusts neither the government to be the regulator, nor the corporations to regulate themselves.
And what's really fascinating is that this anxiety crosses the entire political spectrum. It is not just a partisan issue. Now, the reactions do shift depending on the political climate. For instance, for Democrats, the lack of confidence in government AI regulation saw a huge 20 percentage point jump between 2024 and 2026. Conversely, for Republicans, that confidence deficit actually dropped a bit, from 70% to 61% over the same period. So as political winds shift, convictions about who should control the most powerful technology in human history shift as well. But the overarching theme? Widespread, deep-seated distrust from literally every angle.
So why is this happening? Let's look at Model A versus Model B, the two failing titans. To really understand why oversight is failing, we first have to look at Model A, government regulation. And folks, Model A has a massive velocity problem. Just look at the timeline. The traditional legislative rulemaking process takes months, if not years. For example, back in September 2025, the FTC launched an inquiry into 7 chatbot companies, including heavyweights like OpenAI, Meta, and Google, specifically regarding teen safety. But in the real world, new AI capabilities are deployed globally in a matter of weeks. The gap between that FTC inquiry and actual enforceable rules is measured in entire product generations. By the time a law is actually passed, the technology has already moved on, rendering the legislation completely obsolete on arrival. So then we have Model B, which tries to fix that speed issue. This is corporate social responsibility, or CSR. It's basically a self-regulation model where the tech companies proactively govern their own products. They publish safety guidelines, they form internal ethics boards, and they tout all these responsible AI principles. But as the public polling clearly showed us, 6 in 10 Americans completely reject these corporate promises. They see right through it, recognizing the massive gap between corporate declarations and actual corporate actions.
And honestly, you absolutely cannot blame them. This skepticism is completely rational. All we have to do is look back at the history of technology and finance. We've seen the massive, sweeping failures in social media regarding content moderation when they were left to self-regulate. We saw the devastating role financial platforms played in the 2008 crisis when external guardrails were stripped away. History demonstrates over and over again that self-regulation without real external accountability just tends toward the minimum necessary compliance. They do just enough to avoid getting sued rather than putting in the maximum effort required for real public safety.
To really visualize this crisis, let's look at a highway metaphor.
Imagine you are on a highway. Visibility is terrible and there are absolutely no speed limits anywhere. Tech companies are the engineers who built these incredibly powerful, lightning-fast cars. And they are accelerating down this dark road so fast that the speedometers are essentially maxed out and shaking.
Now, while these cars are speeding along, where exactly is the government? Well, they're stuck on the sidelines. They're trying to figure out how to establish structural guardrails, but mostly, they're just standing in the dirt, arguing with each other about whether the roads even need rules in the first place or what those rules should even look like.
And here is the crucial takeaway, and exactly why this matters so deeply to all of us. Think about your role in this metaphor. You, along with 340 million other Americans, are trapped in the back seat. You are just passengers. The doors are locked, the visibility is poor, you literally cannot reach the brakes, and you don't even have a speedometer to know how fast you're actually going. It is a profound, visceral feeling of powerlessness.
But there is some hope. Let's explore the framework, a third way.
Fortunately, the most sophisticated governance models emerging in 2026 are finally recognizing this systemic failure. We're beginning to see a shift toward a crucial synthesis, a brand new path forward. This emerging third way is a co-regulatory framework. It realizes that pure government regulation is way too slow and pure self-regulation is entirely untrustworthy. Instead, it combines establishing independent standards bodies with implementing mandatory algorithmic audits. It relies on forming actual international AI compacts and applying tiered oversight models based strictly on the risk level of the AI being deployed. This entire framework is designed to finally bridge that incredibly dangerous gap between government slowness and corporate momentum.
Which brings us to our final, critical point, the accountability paradox.
Because even with this very promising third way emerging, we still face a massive paradox that we simply cannot afford to ignore. There's a quote that hits the nail on the head regarding this danger. If government can't move fast enough and corporations won't constrain themselves and the public trusts neither, AI's governance will be decided in defaults, designs, and the invisible architectures of digital life. Think about what that actually means. When a huge plurality of Americans trusts absolutely nobody to govern AI, we don't magically end up with balanced oversight. We end up with an accountability vacuum. We end up with zero oversight. The machine just governs itself by default, quietly shaping our reality through the code and invisible architectures we interact with every single day.
So, knowing the immense stakes of this technology, seeing the absolute failure of our traditional models of oversight, and understanding that invisible architectures are actively shaping our digital lives right now, while we sit helplessly in the passenger seat, who do you ultimately trust to govern the machine?